everybody.
Hey guys.
I'm Cassie.
I'm Daniel.
This is Daniel. We're both real estate agents for the Joyful Roberts Group and Pacific Rim Realtors. And today we're going to be talking about credit score and checking it and raising it, which is the fourth step in buying a home. So every week we've been going through and describing each step of buying a home. So if you've missed a previous week, you can find a link to all of our resources in the description.
Yep.
So today, though, we're specifically talking about credit score. And credit score is a way for a lender to determine how riskier of a borrower you are. If you have a lower credit score, then that tells a lender, like I said, you're going to be a more risky borrower, and oftentimes that could turn into higher interest rates and then higher monthly mortgage payments.
Right, and there's a lot of ways to look at your credit score. I think it was either last year or the year before, there was a new law passed that changed the visibility of your credit score. It used to be that you had to jump through a lot of hoops to know what your score was, but now your score is a lot more visible. So most banking apps actually have a way that you can go on there if you have a credit card and see what your credit score is at the click of a button. Makes it a lot easier so that you can stay up to date. And if you see a drop in your score, there's ways that you can get your report easier and see what exactly caused that drop. So the main number, or kind of like the golden number, I guess, would be 740. That's kind of the credit score that you want to have. And credit score, I don't know what it goes down to. I think, well, I don't know. I don't remember exactly the lowest score, but the highest score goes up to 850. So anywhere from, most people have a range from like 500 up to 850. And there's tiers of what is considered a good score and what's considered not. But 740 is that number at which above it, you're going to get the best rates. So if your score is already above 740, you really don't need to worry that much. But if you're right around that mark, or if you're below, this could be a really good video to help you get your credit score up to get the best possible rates for you. One of the things too is it can take a while to get your credit score up, so it's important to check this early. Like if you're thinking of buying a house within the next few months, definitely make sure your score is up where it needs to be, because it's not just something, and you'll see why in this video, it's not just something you can just do a couple quick fixes and get your credit score up, even though there are sometimes things you can do, but to get the maximum increase in your score, you really have to do some things in advance. So, and I'm going to show there's 5 main things that affect your score. So the first one is payment history. Next one is amount of debt. Well, what do you think? Should we go through each one and say
Just list them all,
okay,
and then we can go into detail.
So I'm going to list the 5. The first one is payment history, and that's just I want to explain it now, but you have to wait and be patient. So payment history is 35% though of your overall score. And that's the most significant metric that a lender is going to use, because your track record of paying off loans shows. I don't know how I can do this without explaining them.
I'll explain it then.
Okay.
We can go through and
Let's just go through and we'll explain what each one is and why it's important, and also how much of your score it makes up.
Yeah, so like Daniel said, payment history makes up 35% of your credit score. So payment history is a way for a lender to see how consistent you are at paying your bills. So if you're paying your bills on time, it's going to keep your credit score higher. Whereas if you start missing payments, of course, it's going to lower your score, because you're going to be deemed as a riskier borrower, because then you're likely going to start missing more payments over time. So you always want to make sure that you've paid your bills on time. And if you find out you've missed a payment, pay it immediately. And then you want to really be making sure that you haven't missed any payments elsewhere. And that way you're keeping your credit score up as high as possible throughout.
Yeah, on-time payments is really simple and easy to do, but a lot of people don't do it. And if you have a pattern of not doing that, it can take a while of paying your payments on time for it to reflect in your credit score. So again, start doing that now, no matter where you're at, what you're doing, because that missing payments or even being late is going to affect your score.
Yeah.
The next part is credit utilization ratio. It's kind of a mouthful, and that's 30% of your overall score. So utilization ratio is basically just saying how much of your available credit do you have taken up. So if you have a credit card and you have a credit limit of $10,000, how much of that limit do you keep on your card? If your card's constantly around like $9,000, that's a high utilization ratio, and it's showing that you're risky because you've constantly got a lot of debt compared to what you can afford. So any big thing that came up that you might need more credit, you don't have any more credit because it's all used up already. So a good rule of thumb is to keep your utilization ratio below 30%, and even lower is better. But 30% would mean if your credit limit's $10,000, never go above $3,000. And you can also request credit limit increases, and that'll help you. Like if you can raise your credit limit up to $20,000 and for some reason have to go up to $5,000, rather than being a 50% utilization ratio, it's only 25%. So it's just a way to make sure that you have that in mind. And some people think, oh, well, I'm not nearing my credit limit, so I must be okay, but that's actually not true. So, yeah.
So the next category is credit history, and this makes up 15% of your credit score. Mm-hmm. So your credit history is the age of your accounts. So if you have had, if you've been paying off your bills and you've had a line of credit for a long time and a long history of paying off those bills, then you're obviously going to have a higher credit score. So if you don't, then this is one reason why it can take so long to get your credit score up, because if you don't have a good history of paying it off, then that reflects negatively as a borrower.
And it's somewhat different from payment history, because payment history is how you actually pay it off.
Yeah.
But the credit history, that is how long you've had the account, if that makes sense. So there's how good you have been about paying it off and how long you've actually had it. So if you've had something for a month, well, that doesn't really say a lot. But if you've had it for 10 years, then that shows, hey, you're consistent, you're more likely, just because it's been open for so long, it looks better.
And if you're opening, like Daniel was saying, if you're opening up a lot of new credit lines, it's seen as a risk because you don't have that tracked history of paying off your bills.
Which you'll find out in just a second. So the next part is mix of credit accounts. So this is just rather than having only one form of credit, having multiple forms, which would be a mortgage is great to see because it's backed up by property, and homeowners statistically have a better likelihood of paying off their bills. Next one would be like if you have student loans or car loans or credit cards, basically just having a good mix of credit and having a good history on all of them shows that you can handle having some debt, and lenders like to see that. The next part, and that's 10%. Did we talk about the payment history? Payment history or the credit account history is 15%.
Yeah, I said that.
And then the mix of credit accounts, the next one is 10%. And then the last one, new credit inquiries, like Cassie was just mentioning, is also 10%. So the new credit inquiries, that's just saying how often are you getting your credit pulled? And this is something that's actually, there's kind of some myths surrounding it about like if you apply for a mortgage and they check your credit, people think it's going to damage their score. But if it's a soft inquiry, which means they're only checking your credit and you're not actually opening up a new account, that's not going to really affect your score. If you're opening up a lot of new credit cards, however, and like if you're opening up store credit and applying for new car loans a lot, then that's actually going to damage your score. But just getting your credit checked for a mortgage actually will have zero to little impact on your score. And the reason they use this as a way to show risk is that people who within a short period of time get how many is it? I think 6 hard inquiries are, I don't remember the statistic, but they're way more likely to go bankrupt, because if someone's out of money, they're going to start opening all this credit so that they can try to juggle and pay things off. So that's seen as a risk because it's also uncertain, and the lender just doesn't know what's going to happen with these new credit accounts. So that's why it's good to not open a lot of new accounts, but also when you're applying for a mortgage, it's not going to have a big impact on your score.
Yeah. And that was the 5th one. So those, like we said, are the 5 components that make up your credit score. We always recommend that people do their own research on top of this, and that you talk to a lender about your specific financial situation, because it is going to be unique for every single person. And if you had any other questions, though, feel free to reach out, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we love, really, even though we have to say we're not qualified on financial advice, but we love helping point people in the right direction. So we have a blog about this, about increasing your credit score, and we can also point people to other great financial resources. And we kind of know enough to be dangerous, so that if you have a question, if we don't know the exact answer, then we can point you in the right direction at least. So yeah, if you have questions, please reach out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this helpful.
Yeah. Bye.